Hello everybody, welcome back to From Rhythm to Algorithm. We continue on with our derivation, what is sensorality? Trying to find the stabilizing syllability. Talking about any logic, any facts, going from a direct fact, first principles, we've built up our logical structure from first principle, trying to find the right question to ask. Anybody is a subset of anything, right? A theory of everything. All things, all objects are discrete. They come together, they interact in a continuous manner, and that gives you the universe, right? The universe is everything. And so we've demonstrated that language has natural definitions and that language is bounded, right? So even within open systems, all physical systems in 3 dimensions are black bodies, they interact, and all of our language and mathematics is built on or emerges from physical processes. And so anything, right? All of the anythings produce everything, and all of the anybodies produce everybody. Right? We talked about and explicitly said, right? Everybody limits everything. Anybody limits everybody. Sensorality is mindful. Mindfulness is awareness. Interference, filtration. Ferentiality is filtration. So, right, interference, difference, right? That's right, because we're building our axiomatization, and then we have to reduce that. And language is all consistent. So we're trying to show this completeness from base to complete range, limited by 7, elementality 7. Then stuff starts to reiterate, trying to show that completeness in one given theorem. And from that theorem, we will derive the next axiom. Interference creates difference. Interfere, differ. Sensorality is appearance. Sensorality averts. Sensorality is aversion, right? Now aversion, because remember when I'm talking about this derivation, this fundamental stability of 2, and I can't think of what it is, and I can directly look it up, but again, there's some sort of order or like passage through. You have to derive through, like in the same way you have to go through the Bering Strait or through the Suez Canal. You have to go through a certain syllability where it contains, again, I do it intuitively, but there's some sort of limit, again, with 5. Well, there's a lot of numeric limits, but we've covered most of them. But point being is the word aversion, right? It has A, E, I, O, the first, 4 vowels, right, of English in order, right? And so there was, I don't know if you had to use all of the vowels, but aversionness, like O-U-S would get all of the vowels in order, but there would be an extra O. But I forget what the actual step was. Again, there's no point for me to look it up. You'll see it. It's just, from my perspective, like I said, it feels incomplete on a personal level. I sent off an email, the fundamental theorem of ignorance, emptiness, or like you can feel empty, or like I say on a personal level, it's like I said, and these periods of derivation last for years. And so like for like 3-4 years, you'll just sitting there, 5 years, and it's just like you're not even sure what question to ask, but on a personal level, you feel like you know nothing. You feel the incompleteness. And so looking up the step, because again, this is a new derivation, it doesn't do anything. But point being is right now, when you see this video, if you're not the person behind closed doors committing crimes, you'll see this step and be like cumbersome trying to walk around it, or we've already passed through it or something. But again, we have that A-E-I-O in aversion. Sensorality limits adversity. Sensorality is versatility. Sensorality is versatile. And so we just derived, again, versatility from aversion, adversity. But then if we flip, again, we flip this I and the A and the A and the I from versatile to versatility. Something's going on there, and again, that flipping, same way with conversation and conservation, same exact syllability, same letters, but you flip one letter and you invert, you chirate, I'm trying to use chiral again, where you flip 2 letters and the phonetics, the sound, is some sort of iteration. What is the relationship between the universe and infinity? Right? Because we just said the universe is everything. And infinity is the awareness that all things that exist are larger than all of the things we can interact with. And so the universe is bigger than infinity. The infinity is conceptually definite, even though the word says not finite. But then again, it still doesn't resolve the intuitive question of this object has a definitive boundary. Does the universe, you get what I'm saying intuitively, have a definitive bound? And then our conceptual step, remember we had that episode where it was like, if this it needs to be resolved, we'll come back to it. Again, numerically, we're at some sort of 7, concept of 7 being iterated. But the concept of growth, right, is the universe expanding is kind of equivalent to asking, is the universe growing, right? But the growth literally physically comes from more resonance. And when things are more ordered, they occupy less space. So the universe is contracting. That's definitive. But it still doesn't answer the boundary question, but it's some sort of unresolvability. You can't, this awareness, infinity, the awareness that there's things out there that we literally cannot interact with, right? You can't, it's like somehow it limits conceptually the ability to pose a question to say, effectively, what is the boundary of the universe? But the growth of the universe, in the same way the growth from you personally comes from internal understanding, the universe's internal understanding is rhythm increasing resonance, right? Making things more efficient in their orbital patterns, in their day-to-day motions, right? If you want to do something more efficiently, you occupy less space, or you take less steps to get something done. And so we have a physical definition of what efficiency is, occupying less space. So the universe is definitely contracting. The concept of growth comes from less things being used more efficiently. And then there's some sort of numeric limit where we can't actually ask, what is the edge of the universe? Literally some sort of geometric relationship. And you'll see this, we'll see that kind of resolve itself with this completeness of sensorality, because sensorality will be complete definition, but it's still a word within a system of language that isn't complete, and it never will be completed. So that's kind of like, it will demonstrate this undefinability or inability to conceptualize anything past infinity is the awareness of the universe being bigger than what people can interact with. And that awareness being, again, universally unique. You can take some galaxy in the unobservable universe, and they have it's the same truth. It's the same concept that where we would be immeasurable or uninteractable with them. And so infinity is well defined, making it definite. Sensorality is versal. A reversal is a flip. Sensorality is reversality. Ubiquity is universality. Sensorality is ubiquitality. What is the relationship between everything and everywhere? Right? And if that was an intuition that, again, we all experience the same things and then we force the language that are all similar because language is consistent, there would even be a movie called Everything Everywhere All at Once. Oh, wait, there is. And so what is that relationship? Right? Everything, all right? Energy existed, that stabilized into mass. That mass stabilization creates what we call space, but it's really, again, absence of matter is what we have defined. And then everywhere is a creation, right? Because there's things create wheres, right? Objects being form condensing from energy produces distance. And so where is something located? Everywhere is all of the anywheres, continuing on with our logic that we said earlier. Because again, at this point, we're just trying to get our concepts in the right area, and then, words are trivial. Truly. And so everything creates everywhere. Sensorality exaggerates. Sensorality is durationality. And clearly, I know I've said it a bunch, but we just have some word, and then it's very clear with this analysis process now what functions as a prefix. We just take the base, we generalize it completely, and we continue on with our reduction. Right? It's like a balsamic reduction for your meal, but with all of language. Sensorality is durationality. Duration, generation. Sensorality generates. Sensorality is generationality. Sensorality is narration. Sensorality is narration. Sensorality narrates. Competence is aptitude. Sensorality is attitude. Altitude is height. And so now what is height to height, right? Length, width, height. We showed that's completion. You type it into Google, say it's height, but there's two unique contexts. In the same way, a lot is different than a lot. And so that is the universal methodology of doing things wrong is oversimplification. Saying this is exactly equivalent to this. immediately apparent from on an individual basis. We're all individually unique. You extend that and you generalize that immediately trivially. Everything is infinitely unique is what I called speciality in my original. Like, you introduce a proof and then you close the proof. So speciality closed the axiom of infinite uniqueness. And so I just said, here's this concept and here's definitely the words that represents that. And it's true, right? Speciality, you differentiate to reproduce, to attract a mate. So height and height have two different meanings. And I really naturally wrote altitude as height. And so again, to me, it's just this another form of cardinality versus ordinality. Ordinality giving you your order, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. Again, first and second have their defined thing. So it's third really, but then fourth, fifth. Because again, that fundamental stability of two, and then we live in three dimensions. And so height versus height, some cardinality versus ordinality. But then more generally, what is to ish, right? It's salt, it's salty, right? And that can either be, there's salt in the dish, or there's, you're embarrassed, or, you feel uncomfortable. And so ish is like very similar to the likeness bias. You put the letter E, the letter Y, and the sound E at the end of the word. It's salt, it's salty, it's salt, it's salt-ish. And so ish and E both function as some sort of linguistic representation of analogy or of metaphor. And again, metaphor is more of like the natural progression where you show there is no difference in the logic. You're just talking about it in two different contexts. Analogies, you use like or as because it's not the same logic. And so, in conclusion, eligibility qualifies. What is legibility to syllability? Right? The ability to read and to discern what is written in front of you. Right? You syllability, the ability to be a syllable, you represent those syllables with letters. Those letters are legible. Legibility is proportional to literacy. Now remember, way back we defined literacy, and again, we didn't define it. I just acknowledged the definition and then we proved these definitions. And so literacy, first of all, what's its base, right? Well, kind of against one of these amalgamated C, but it has light in it once again, L-I-T-E. So now we're trying to pull all of these concepts back in, but they're already consistent, right? I'm not producing this. It's just I am getting these concepts in order. And so legibility is proportional to literacy, literacy being the act of actively reading and writing. And we derived activality last time. And so literacy, the actively reading and writing, increases legibility, right? If you write more, it's easier to read what you're writing, right? And then it even produces that concept of, a doctor has shitty handwriting. Oh, I'm such a smart dude and I'm in a hurry that I just scribble, right? Scribbling is not legibility. It's the inverse. So we've produced all of these forms. Again, the breadth of this derivation is tremendous. But we're getting to a point where we're analyzing natural definitions that we've identified, right? Legibility, right? All of these things that end in ility, ability, syllability completely introduced by me. But then literacy, the ability to actively read and write. How does fluency, and right, fluency's natural definition, which we identified, is influential. Influential literally spells out fluent. So how does fluency relate to literacy? Right, they're proportional. The more you read and write actively, the more you're fluent. The more influential, the more impact you have on yourself, on your family, on your friends, on your business, on whoever, on your environment. And so we're getting our logical concepts, we're identifying and showing these, not even inconsistency, but incompleteness with our logical development with language, and we're filling in all of these little nooks and crannies and cracks and crevices and anything that could be represented by words have meaning, and here are the specific words we are using. So as always, we make a ton of progress. It is all illegal. We are so far in this derivation. I've done this whole process. This will, like I said, this will be the fourth time. If I'm alive to see this completion occur, and science team already has it. I know that because it has to come from the iteration. You can just type in iterate all of these letters, and you'll get the form of the word, but you won't get the logic, and you won't get the step-by-step building up to that result. And then, like I said, looking up the completing result for speciality. Like I said, the only value that would have is me literally putting it on the screen, like, here's what we did, but it doesn't do that for sensorality. Because again, the words aren't unique. We're showing the iteration of the syllables. So my rights continue to be violated. It is profound and extensive torture. No one cares. There's nowhere I can go. There is no one I can call, and there's nothing I can do. I simply beg for someone to do the right thing to any extent. Give me a little bit of money so I can feel safe enough to eat, sleep, and work. That has never occurred in my entire life. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.